You'll tell us? Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our gallery and to Thursdays with NoMAA. My name is Miriam Leyva-Gutierrez, and I'm the Executive Director. Before we begin, it is my pleasure to introduce NoMAA's Art Stroll Coordinator, Martin Collins, who has a special statement for us tonight. Martin.
Thank you, Neria. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Thursdays with NoMAA. We especially want to thank Malecon Restaurant for providing great food for tonight's Thursdays with NoMAA. They're located right across the street at 4141 Broadway and West 175th Street, serving the best Dominican Caribbean cuisine in New York City. Malecon is the king of roast chicken, and they have great, delicious daily lunch and dinner specials, indoor and outdoor dining, catering, and free delivery. Malecon's flagship location here in Washington Heights has served the community for 4 decades. They also have locations at Amsterdam Avenue and West 97th Street, on Broadway and West 231st Street in the Bronx, and at 390 South Broadway in Yonkers. We again thank Malecon Restaurant for supporting tonight's Thursdays with NoMAA. And next time you're in Washington Heights Inwood, be sure to support a small business and visit Malecon Restaurant. Daria?
Thanks, Martin, and thanks to Malecon for your support and for tonight's delicious spread. And for those of you who are at home, we're sorry you can't be here with us tonight to partake in the spread, but we, of course, encourage you all, as Martin said, to come visit Malecon right across the street from NoMAA and the United Palace, where we are tonight. Once again, good evening to all of you. We are thrilled to be here tonight. This is our very first hybrid Thursdays with NoMAA. And for those who have joined us over the last 2 years, you know that we have held these events virtually. But tonight, we've opened our gallery for an in-person evening and set up a live stream platform so that those of you who aren't able to be here tonight can still participate, maybe curled up on your sofas, perhaps with a glass of wine. If you're here tonight, perhaps your wine is in hand. Either way, wine or no wine, we are excited to be here together. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to thank our partners here at the United Palace, and of course the New York State Council of the Arts, also known as NYSCA, for their support of this program. And speaking of this program, it is a favorite for us here, a true highlight for us. And so we are so excited to be able to continue bringing this program to you tonight, and we do so in hybrid fashion, which is extra exciting for us. These evenings joyfully bring us together, allowing us to get to know one another in a dynamic and intimate setting. It's a unique opportunity to get to know our amazing uptown artists, to learn something new or unexpected about these artists, and it's especially a chance for all of you to ask questions and engage in conversation with our featured artists. So please, as always, we encourage you to ask your questions in the chat. We're here live tonight, and we will be sure to give you a chance to ask them directly. And now, on to our featured artists. Ibtisam Tasnim Zaman, whose website header revealingly leads with "Create with Love." Ibtisam is a Black lesbian American multidisciplinary feminist and self-taught artist. Her art practice, which demonstrates a tremendous range, consists of creative writing, spoken word poetry performance, narrative painting of BIPOC people, and community art projects. She hails originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma, but moved at the age of 6 to England, followed by the UAE. After 9/11, her mother made the decision to escape the violence that Muslims and BIPOC communities are still facing today. And so from the age of 13 onwards, she lived between the UAE and India over a 9-year period. Her work, focusing on narrative storytelling through woven, constructed tapestry oil paintings, and performance art expressed through spoken word, song, and movement, draws inspiration from Persian Islamic geometric art, Indian classical art, surrealism, and magical realism, which, by the way, fits in beautifully here at the United Palace. And so if you've been to the palace and seen it, you'll know what I mean. And if you haven't, I encourage you to to come back and see that. She has been exhibited nationally with New York Health and Hospitals Arts and Medicine Program in collaboration with Residency Unlimited, funded by the Laurie and Tish Illumination Fund. She has also exhibited in group and duo exhibitions and is currently completing a Governor's Island residency through Residency Unlimited. Her work was also featured in NoMAA's 2022 Women in the Heights exhibition held in our second floor gallery. Coming from a theater background, she's performed her poetry for Ruckus in New York, and she has also performed at Columbia University and taken part in academic panel discussions concerning Blackness, femininity, and healing. Internationally, she has performed in theater productions in the UAE, and her work has been featured in the Gender Bender exhibition by the Sandbox Collective and the Goethe Institute in Bangalore, India, where she debuted her first narrative portrait, Al-Aura, The Intimate Parts. After receiving her bachelor's in arts with a triple major in sociology, economics, and history in India, she moved back to the States, making New York her home, where she works and lives as a full-time artist, art educator, writer, poet, and linguistic interpreter. Just recently, she showcased her new work for her duo show with Damali Abrams, Our Mother's Garden, at Ace Hotel in Brooklyn, and is participating in the fundraising auction with Art Noir and Artsy until November 15th. We are thrilled to have her here with us tonight, and so we ask you all to give her a warm welcome.
Thank you all so much for being here, everybody who is on the Zoom, but also I really want to take a moment to thank Michelle, Neria, and Martin for putting so much effort and time into organizing this beautiful event at NoMAA. Yeah, I really appreciate them. I've been working closely with them over this last year, and I'm really excited for our talk tonight. So, as you all already know from Neria's presentation, my name is Ibtisam, Tasnim, Zaman. And I think the essence of where I start as a being and as a person has this year really folded into my art, and so I'm going to tell you the meaning of my name. Ibtisam means smiling. Tasnim means river in paradise, and Zaman means time. So my name is literally smiling, river in paradise, time. And when I think about my work now, I think about what that means to incorporate myself in the pieces that I make. So, Nuria said a lot of beautiful things about me that I was actually going to include in the presentation, but it's actually quite wonderful because we get to sit a lot longer with the works themselves, and we can have like a nice conversation about them. So I'm a multidisciplinary, intersectional feminist, self-taught, culturally Muslim, Black American, lesbian artist. These identities within my narrative as a person are crucial to my work because having the vast experiences that I have over the different places that I was raised really impact how I see the world and how I overlap my paintings, as you'll see soon. So I'm originally from So I'm originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma, right below the Mason-Dixie line, right above Texas. But I left when I was 6, was in England for long enough to get a strong British accent that lasted longer than my time in England. And then I was in UAE, which is right here, next to Oman in Saudi Arabia. And then I was in India. I call myself a poet-painter because my poetry is like paintings, and my paintings are like poetry, and they feed off of one another. So my art is divided into what one could call my narrative paintings, as well as my community and social practice art. So my community and social practice art consists of community organizing, murals with the community, and a project that I'm currently working on called Through Our Own Eyes, which is a series of BIPOC portraits that started in 2021 with paintings, but I've been actually working on it since 2015, drawing people's portraits. So this is an event that I'm going to talk briefly about. It was called Say Her Name Vigil. This is an event that we had organized in 2020 during the uprisings, shortly after the murder of George Floyd, as well as Breonna Taylor. So there weren't a lot of spaces for healing for Black women, specifically in terms of how we are faced with misogyny. And so I really wanted to take time, we wanted to collectively take time to give ourselves that space. We also didn't have it uptown, so this event was held in Yonkers. We had people who donated flowers that were given out to all the Black femmes who were present that day. In addition, we had art making earlier that day, and Lenil Palanco's sister actually came and gave a talk. So we had talks by different Black femmes of all kinds of queer representation, giving speeches that day. This is actually the mural that was mentioned just earlier by Nirya. So it's called Joy Through Family Help. And so the process of making this mural entailed, well, first being selected, but it was also, the community was so involved in every single step of the process. So they told me exactly what they wanted in the mural. They told me that they wanted to see a little girl in hijab. So I put a little girl in hijab, but who is the little girl in hijab going to grow into? A woman in hijab, possibly. I used to be a little girl in hijab, so obviously I don't wear hijab anymore. But thinking about the little girl that I was, it was really important to me to be able to have the full spectrum of representation of community in this mural. So everything you see was just a collaboration between the community and I of their vision of themselves. So this is actually a mural that's in a clinic in Harlem. It's in St. Nicholas. I can give you the exact address if you're interested to go see it. Most recently, this mural is featured in a book funded by the Lorraine Tisch Illumination Fund and in collaboration with Residency Unlimited, who I also work very closely with. You should check them out. And they have an open call for artists, if you know of anybody who's a muralist, because this was a program that they've been doing for 3 years, and now they're going to start it again. And so it just got published into a book of 26 featured artists. And here are the FaceTime portraits Through Our Own Eyes, the series I was talking about. Why I call this a community project, and I think this is the most important aspect of it, is because I'm actively building community as I choose people to paint. So this woman, well, she's a friend of a friend's who I found out later, actually, because she was looking at this painting and she said, I know this woman. But I met her through Instagram and I said, I would love to paint you, because we were in conversation about art organically. And so she came, sat, had chai, which is tea, and we just had a lot of really beautiful conversations, and now we're friends. It's the same for this woman here. Her name is Khadija, and this is a friend of a friend's. But with each and every single one of these people, I was able to build my own relationship and introduce them to each other over time. So this expansion and this network is what I'm recognizing as community and really building it and sewing it together. So I've created about 40 different portraits. Sometimes I paint people more than once. So some of them have 3 portraits, some of them have narrative portraits in the process of being made right now, which we're going to next. Oh, I should also say these are all on my website, so I don't show all of them here, but you're more than welcome to check them out, and I hope you do. Creating poetry and narrative tapestries. So before I show you some of the work that I'm doing, I'll talk to you a little bit about the process. So I recently And then once that's done, that drawing goes on to become a painting. Borders are a really important aspect of my work. So I create a core image, and then the border goes around it and it overlaps it. So there's a lot of cutting and a lot of layering to represent all of the layers that are the person and the person's experiences. The narrative that inhabits not a single identity, but the multitude of identities that we all have within us constantly. So this is the painting that Nirya had mentioned that was exhibited at the Gender Bender Festival event at the Goethe Institute in Bangalore, India. So this was in 2017. This was when I actually started creating narrative paintings. This is 5 by 7 feet, so it's quite large. I wanted to bring it, but it's too big and it's rolled up right now. So this painting is about the lives and limitations of women in the Middle East. So in each of these countries within the Middle East, see how far it spans, all the way into part of North Africa and a lot of Asia. Every single country had different laws that I researched that demonstrated how women's lives and people who are within the queer community were either progressing or regressing according to the government's laws in each and every single one of the countries. And within all of the bodies of water, I wrote a lot of prose. Having been raised Muslim, I have a wealth of, I was raised Muslim, but I was also raised religious. So I have a wealth of Islamic knowledge at my fingertips. So analyzing some of the content that I was taught and really bringing forth the narratives of the women that exist within Islam that we don't hear too much of. Like this is actually, so I have 2 moms, and I used one of my mothers as the archetype of a woman named Nusayba. So during one of the wars, there were so many, I can't remember which one it was, but during one of the wars, NoMAA actually saw that men were approaching where the women were hiding in the mosque. So that was up in the mountains, and as these soldiers are starting to approach the women and the children and the elderly, one man was fast approaching. And so what she ended up doing was she wrapped garb around her that was that of a man's, and she covered her face, and she wore a turban, and then she went out, killed him, beheaded him, and then went to the top of the mosque, held the head up, and any other man that was approaching immediately fled, because then what they had assumed they were going to go and violate women and children, and then they were scared that there were soldiers there. And this story is not talked about enough. And I think that kind of warrior legacy should be honored. So I put her in the painting. This is titled "The Living is Easy." So during 2018, I was doing a lot of research about the history of enslavement in this country and the legacy and how that ties to me. So I think up until this piece, I was really coming to terms with my own identity as a woman, as a queer person, but as a woman. And once I had a clear understanding, partly because of this painting, I moved on to understand how my blackness then fit into my identities and how the world perceives me and how they relate to me. And being a light-skinned black woman, that looks different depending on the length of my hair, the texture it looks like. And so these are things that I'm always navigating and analyzing as I walk through this world. This is titled "Child of the Fall, Neither White Nor Black." It's a portrait of my mother. She's biracial. And I really wanted to honor a moment of a story that she told me. So there's a poem by Langston Hughes, and it's called, I think it's called "Neither White Nor Black." And it goes like this: my father was born in a great white house. My mom was born in a shack. I wonder where I'm going to die, being neither white nor black. And my mother read this when she was 5, and she told me that. And then she said, and I remember at 5 understanding exactly what that poem meant. And I think when I was making this painting, I wanted to bring attention to the fact that our black and brown babies within our communities, within our society, are going through something that we are not talking about. We are having to confront the different aspects of our identity that have been placed on us because it is a construct, to an extent. It's a construct that we live with. And so it is an actual, tangible reality. So I wanted to talk about that. My mother was born in the fall, and so you have the leaves, and it's her likeness as a child, and so the quilts, or the quilting around the border felt appropriate. This is in memory of Mamie Till and her son Emmett. I made this in 2021. I started it in 2020. It was very difficult to paint it. And really all I wanted to do with this painting was to honor the single choice of Mamie Till to have an open casket for her son, because she is with that single choice, she was able to continue our ongoing movement, but also be the catalyst for where it has brought us today. This is Gladys Bentley. She was a drag king in the 1920s and 1930s. This is titled Black Lily, but it's about Fannie Lou Hamer. So you have the cotton to represent the South, you have the magnolia, and you have lilies, because in a poem by June Jordan, she was called Black Lily. So you have one black lily, and then you have other lilies for each of her adopted children. But I Am Free is an autobiographical self-portrait. If you would like the translation and the clearer image of it, I'd be happy to send you it. But it basically shows how I've been in transit my whole life. And so you have the crab apples and the plums and the peaches for the South, and you have the desert and you have the mangoes for living in Asia. This is All I Promise. It's just a beautiful painting. I mean, they're all beautiful to me, and they are very close to my heart. This is a series that is ongoing called Still Life, War in America. So this series, War in America, my aim with it is to comment on the ongoing militarization, the normalization of the militarization in this country. So painting, the little toy soldiers. And this is one of the last paintings that I made. This is where my work is leaning towards. So it's leaning into a more, what do we call it? Magical fantasy realm. But we can talk about it a little bit more. For now, I'm going to be performing a poem. I watched you claw your way out of the wreckage. With crippled hands and shattered joints, after standing in the middle of the ocean, setting fire to the monument, built to honor your honorless name. On a night so dark, you actually believed you could hide from God. But she sat beside me the whole time, watching too. Past the popcorn to see the train wreck as your psycho danced a ritual around the flame. With disgust so deep, earth shivered and wept, while you drowned your head in shame, venom laced on your tongue, hate sewn on your gums. Your body, a corpse, ruined, broken, near death and dying, with your insides on the outsides, sliced and hanging, bleeding out, staining the sand, with memories of pitiful pain and pathetic regret. With dry mouth like cracked desert in drought, the vultures are circling, but your will to suffer is greater than their hunger, so they will drop, dead before you do. Am I witnessing a soul that goes through famine? I believe the famine goes through you, burrowing like a monster through lungs to chest, craving that which beats, the only humanity you had left. paralyzing limb from action, the onset of depression, the downfall of a warrior who never saw sunlight grace a battlefield or a war of any kind. False idol on a pedestal you never should have placed yourself on. Thank you.
I'm just gonna, okay, here we go. We're gonna sit down for a minute. I have so many things to say and ask. You tell us a little bit about your trajectory. You talk about your self-taught, and you have a BA in sociology, economics, and history, which you said informed your art, and I think it's editing. But take us through
The journey.
Yeah, take us through.
It's long. So I think something that I love to say about myself is I came out of the womb feminist. And I think this is incredibly true to who I am as a person. But I also came out of the womb an artist. And so my mother tells me stories of when I was little and me singing at the top of my lungs in the middle of the night, completely asleep. Unaware, dreaming about singing. And so I have always been an artist, but I fell in love with drawing because a friend of my mother's had started drawing, and I was like, that's cool, but you could just like sit and copy something on paper. And so I think from the time I was, I want to say 5, I can remember picking up a pencil and I can remember being shown what it is to sketch. Not doing it well, who cares? What is well? I did awesome. And so I have always been drawing, and in high school I was always the girl who was helping people in art class. And I think when during my undergrad, when I was living in India and I was teaching art, I started to draw a lot. I started to paint murals. That's where I fell in love with painting very deeply. And then it kind of started there. That's where the community art started as well, because I found out that you could just help people paint a wall and then make something beautiful. And I think that creation of beauty is what I have always been so attracted to. And so, yeah, just like the mom too. I love it.
Okay, so that's fascinating to me. But I also now want to hear the other side. You say that your sociologist background sort of informs your painting process. How so? Where do you? I mean, clearly the meticulous, note-taking and archiving requires a tremendous amount of observation, right? Observing the world and taking note of it. And so, that impulse to do that is clearly, I think, comes from that background. Also, the impulse to record and to right. But how has that
Merged into my
Yeah.
I think so. I was raised within a household of incredible women. So thinking of my grandmother and thinking about my mother's, we have always had a house and a home that is full of very deep, very radical conversations, which makes sense because all of the lineage of the women in my family were radical people. And so I think that is the basis of where my love for sociology, aside from art, was formed in what I try to do in my work is bring them together to make pieces that are educational, but also healing, that confront something, but hold, so they hold some people and then they confront others, and that is my intention behind my work. So when I was doing my undergrad, I was able to engage with sociology, history specifically, with things that interested me and that I thought a lot about. I've always been a very analytical thinker, and so I think a lot, and so it just gave room to kind of pull all of these thoughts into one place, lay them out visually, so that I can figure out what is it that I'm actually thinking about, and what are the connections, and what would it look like, and how would I show this to someone so they could get it quicker. Because going through books is lovely, and I love reading. It could be for the rest of my life and not do anything else. But the art needs to be made. So how can I make a piece that encompasses all that I'm reading and all that I'm learning, so that they can get there faster, if not in knowledge, in feeling?
I think the layers they show. I think the incorporation also, your mapping, the botanicals. I think that are you? I mean, obviously your own experiences and your travel, and you talk about that. I mean, is that informing the botanicals that you choose? I mean, I know in the case of your mother, she's born in the fall. You just had a conversation about fall, and
yes,
which I thought was really interesting. But are you pulling from the natural world that you've observed from different places that you've been?
Yeah. So the way I think about places is very seasonal and it's based on flowers, because I'm going to be honest, I love putting flowers in my hair. So I'm always observing the natural landscape, the earth landscape around all the concrete of the cities that I live in. And so in thinking about representing different people's narratives that are not necessarily mine but that are tied to mine, I actually do research on the plants that are specific to that region. So let's just do this. In the piece with, I talked a little bit about Penny Hammers, but these plants are specifically in Mississippi and Chicago, because that is where, Chicago is where Emmett Till was raised, and Mississippi was where his mother was originally from, maybe, and that is where he was murdered, so kind of creating a cyclical narrative with the symbolism of the plants was important to me, and I try to do that. So I do research on, and I engage in conversations with the person about what plants are they growing up around. What are the ones that resonate with them? In the narrative portraits that I'm building right now, it's also a question of, well, going the wrong way. What do you like? So this one, it was just really me focusing on creating something that is so full of beauty, just for a mother holding her baby. And her baby doesn't mean it's her biological baby, it just means it's her baby. It's, a baby of the village. It could be her sisters, it could be her neighbors, but it's hers.
I want to give other people a chance to ask questions. Does anybody have a question or a comment at home or here?
I'm curious about the materials, because they're paintings, but early on, what's the backing?
So,
They see they're cut out.
they're cut out, yes. So everything is on canvas. This specific piece is canvas. There's very minimal ribbon. that's embroidered with real rose quartz, freshwater pearls, and glass beads around it and along the canvas. Everything is sewn by hand because it's too delicate.
Did you do it yourself or something?
I did it myself.
You-
And I cut it out myself, so I paint everything on separate pieces of canvas and then I bind them all together. And that is the most spiritually fulfilling process for me. I like to think, I was raised Muslim and I'm not religious anymore and I just identify as culturally Muslim. But my work continues to be rooted in prayer and spirituality, and I think I've figured out a way to maintain spirituality in my life through painting.
Through the process, right?
Through the process, yeah. Does anybody else have a question?
I have a question.
Yeah.
There's a piece called Chaos. Is it Chaos in Time?
Yes.
What was the inspiration behind that piece? You're about to talk about it.
Yeah, Zaman, the chaos of time. The chaos of time. The inspiration behind this piece was rage, specifically a black woman's rage. I was thinking a lot about how we hold rage and how it can give us a lot of, how we hold it determines whether or not it's going to consume us or empower us. And it's a very delicate, fragile balance. And so I wanted to make a painting that is on that edge of what it can be, absolute chaos or a rebirth of some kind, or both. You know, because chaos, I think chaos is beautiful. I think chaos is magical now. But I think it can also be very destructive. So how we wield our own power, our own divine, that's what I was really focusing on, is a kind of divine feminine energy. How can we wield that divine feminine energy to create our own revolutions internally? What is your question?
I was intrigued by your archive process and
Oh,
organization. So I'm just wondering if before you enter that process, do you have a set of questions you always take with you before you start?
Always. I always have a set of questions, and I think I pick the books that I pick because I have the questions, and I think the books are going to give me the answers. But then, of course, in finding the answers, you have so many more questions. Doesn't it? Yeah, exactly. Michelle, do we have any questions online? Okay. Yes,
So you studied in India, you said?
I did. I studied in India.
Sociology in India. And
Yes.
you studied in English?
Yes.
And you
Yes.
studied Arabic as well?
I do. I speak Arabic fluently. When I speak, people assume I'm Arab. I also speak French, and I'm learning Spanish.
Okay. No, I think it's very interesting how in your painting you have all of that overlay, all the layers of culture and different things. So you talk about the chaos, scary, but also the beauty of chaos, or organizations. Because I can see that real, surreal, real and very real time, in space, in the layers of your painting. I think that's very beautiful because you can float within. And I think that's also what you like, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Anybody else? Questions? All right, we have a tradition here on Thursdays with NoMAA, and we do sort of rapid fire questions. So just questions that are just for you to kind of respond to
Immediately.
immediately. Okay.
No one politically, no one politically.
No pondering.
I'm catching you off guard. But if you were assembling a guest list for a small dinner party, say of 5 people, who would you want at your table?
Oh my God.
I know, sorry.
Okay, well, here we go. I'm gonna have to, because, okay. Moza, both my mamas, Brianna, Melody, there we go.
Oh, wow, okay, nice, all right. That's good.
No, I didn't get it.
Oh, yeah, say it again.
So both my moms, my sister, my best friend, and my significant other.
Very nice, okay, that was quick.
Yeah.
All right.
No, because they'll be mad at me. It's gonna be the first time to be anybody else.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
here's one. You've lived in so many places. Using one word, how would you describe each place? Name the place and then the word.
Oh, each place?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Question. That's a beautiful question. India, colorful. UAE. Police state. America. Also police state. Where England, cold. Very cold.
Good. Okay, what is currently on your night table these days?
Ooh. Currently on my night table is a Kindle, my amethyst, some pictures, a picture of my mom when she was younger. I don't even know who's in that picture with her. It doesn't matter. My mom is in it. She's a teenager. She's cute. That's it.
Okay, nice. That's a neat bedside table.
Oh, it's not me. I can't remember that.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think it's some jewelry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
All right.
some jewelry.
Okay, what in your mind is the best kept secret in Northern Manhattan?
The best kept secret in Northern Manhattan is that there's a lot more community here than we think there is, or that is shown. You have to look for it, but it's there.
Very nice. Okay, here's the last one.
Okay.
What movie or song or artwork do you find yourself quoting, watching again, or revisiting?
Okay, I'm gonna say the thing that has been the most forming artistically, and it is chapter 9 of Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon. That chapter is perfection. If you don't read any other page of the book and you just read that chapter, that is a book in and of itself. It's brilliant. So good.
You did say that education was part of your work, and so
Yeah.
you just gave us all an education. And we have homework tonight, which is great. Okay, before we go, does anyone have a rapid fire question that they want to just, no? She's good at this. I was trying to stop you, but no, you're good at this. All right, well, thank you so much. This was really, as I said, it was an education, and it was an essay in beauty and learning and culture. And so we are so grateful that you were here with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.